Hi everyone, welcome back to Paul's PCs. Today we're going to have a look at how to make one of these. So there are a few things that you're going to need to do this. A lighter, some ATX male and female pins, some wires, some sleeving, some wire cutters, and a set of wire crimps. So there are already a lot of videos on how to make these things on YouTube, but when I was kind of researching how to make these for myself, I noticed one thing is which every single video has all got a method whereby you are melting the sleeve onto the wire using some heat shrink, and you will notice that I do not have any heat shrink here, and that's because I'm going to show you how to do it properly, because obviously you can buy these things from places like CableMod or Shack Mods, and you can pretty much guarantee that they are not sitting in their little warehouses melting and throwing away little bits of shrink wrap all the time. If you take a look at one of these wires, they are not melted at all. They are just crimped. And it took me a little while to figure out how to do this without having to melt everything together. There are a very large pile of failed tests and experiments on how to do it, but I think I've finally nailed it, and today I'm going to share how to do that with you. Okay, so this is one that I'd already made for myself to go in a build which is sort of been sitting waiting, what with the GPU shortage and prices, etc. So I've had plenty of time to practice these while GPUs have been unaffordable. So let's have a look at how we do this. Right, first of all, the thing that you're going to want to do is measure what length of wire you're going to need. So you can do this if you're going to make a custom one for a modular PSU, or if you're going to make something for a regular PSU, like an extension cable like the one that I'm going to show you. So I've actually got some pre-cut wires already, which are 30 centimeters long, which is a fairly standard length. So what we need to do is, obviously, once you've cut your wire, you then need to cut a bit of sleeve. And here's the trick to it when we're doing the crimping, is that we cut that piece of sleeve just about 5mm shorter. So if this is 300 millimeters, we're going to do 295 millimeters worth of the sleeving. And the reason for this is that it will shrink a little bit more when we stop the ends from fraying. So I'm using my wire cutters to cut this, but you can use something like scissors and it'll be perfectly fine, because my wire cutters are pretty sharp. So now you can see the wire is just ever so slightly longer than the piece of sleeving. Now this is the only time that we're going to need a lighter for this, because the ends of these are very vulnerable to fraying. So the way to stop that from happening is heat it up just a little bit until you see it starting to melt, and just quickly roll your fingers over the end of it, just like that, and we will end up with something that's a lot slightly melted together and it isn't going to fray. We'll do that on both ends, and this is the reason why we only cut it 5mm short, because by the time we've done the melting, it's practically 10mm shorter, which is actually the length that you want it. Right, and just make sure that you can still get your wires through those ends. Sometimes they close up a little bit too much. Okay, so next we're going to want to cut our wires. Take some insulation off the end of the wires. So actually what we want to do here is cut off around about 10mm worth of the insulation. We're only going to do one end to start with, and you'll see why as we go. Give that a little twist, And there we go. So we've got one partially exposed bit of wire. The best thing to try and do is to try and follow the sort of natural curve of the wire in the sleeve. Otherwise, everything's going to get a little bit tricky. So just pop the wire into the sleeve until it gets all the way through to the other end. And there we have it. Now that's all the way through now. So what we actually want to do at this point, we've got 10mm of exposed wire, but we want to leave about 5mm of it sticking out. And what we're going to do is we're going to crimp around the sleeve and around the wire at the same time. That way the sleeving is going to insulate the rest of the exposed wire. Most of that is also going to go inside of your plug anyway. And it's going to leave you enough room, enough squashable space so that it can actually grip it properly. If you cut it too short, it just doesn't work. Trust me, my pile of failed experiments has taught me exactly that. Right, so now we're going to need a crimping tool and to decide which end we're going to start with. So these little ATX pins that I've got, let's see if we can make this out on the camera. I'll just snap off of this little line. But these have got some slightly longer tabs at the rear end. And these are specifically sort of made for doing this kind of thing. They're made to partially wrap around insulation that's fairly thick and partially wrap around the wire. I don't know if you can make that out on there. So what we want to do is want to have a look at our crimping tool, and you'll notice on these, if you look very closely, once again not sure if you can make this out, but one side has got a slightly wider gap than the other side, which lines up with our slightly longer tab and our slightly shorter tab, and they go in there, and when you crimp it down it crimps onto the wire. So the trick to getting this all sleeved in one go, sort of try and balance everything out so that you've got an equal amount sticking out at both ends. If you get the wire and stuff it into the crimping tool first, getting the very end of it, of your sleeve, just slightly into the narrower side. You can sort of nudge that wire back a little bit once you've done it. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to make this out, but it's in there. Right, so we hold that in place. Then we take our little ATX connector pin and we just simply squish it down over the top and very carefully begin to crimp it. And there we've got it. There we have it. We've crimped the connector around the sleeve and around the wire at the same time. And that is on there really well. No melting involved. It leaves you a much neater finish. Right. Let's get the other end of your wire. There's a reason that we only did one side, because if you're trying to pass this wire all the way through once you've taken the sheathing off, it's just going to get caught. So because this stuff's quite flexible, we simply pull it back to expose the wire, chop off another 10mm of the sheathing, as so, and then just let that go again. Give that wire a little twist to stop it from all coming out of the place. Now if you're going to be using, making a cable that goes directly to your PSU, you're going to want to use two of the same connector, which is the female connectors. I'm making an extension, so I'm going to put a male connector on the opposite end. And it's exactly the same process again. So straighten out your wire a little bit. Get it inside your crimping tool. May need a little bit of assistance from something else there. There we go.
inside your crimping tool, pop the crimp over the top as close as you can to the edge, and go. And there we have it again.
Right, so once you've got both of the ends nicely crimped on, it's a simple case of popping it into the plug. Now the female connector goes, the female connector goes into the side that you would plug into your motherboard. The male connector goes into the side that you would be plugging another connector into. So let's get these the right way around. If you look very carefully inside of these, you'll see, you won't make it out on here at all, I can barely see it myself, but there are some tiny little lines on the inside which line up with the little tabs that you should have left exposed on the bottom of your connector plugs. So you want to just make sure that they are the same way and pop it in. And that should clip into place, nice and secure. Do the same again at the other side, making sure that you get it the right way around, because the last thing that you want to do is sort of cross things over and have them going to the wrong places, because you're just going to fry your motherboard. So easiest way to do this, to make sure that you're definitely getting it right, is first of all doing one wire at a time. Second of all, if you put them round into a loop, it should go directly to the same plug. And we just pop that second one in there. At least in theory. Right, there we go. That goes in to there. And there we have it. And we've got one wire. Obviously, it's just a case of repeating this process another 23 times, which I'm not going to do on this video, but yeah, that's how we do it. So we don't need to melt any shrink wrap, heat shrink, and keep throwing away a lot of stuff unnecessarily. We can just crimp everything together, and that is the right way to do it. Right guys, well I hope you found that informative. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to click the like and subscribe. I realise that if you are a subscriber of this channel, I have not put up very much content lately. So thanks to all those people who have been viewing my videos, and to all those people that have continued to subscribe in my complete and utter absence from YouTube. So until next time, catch you later.